Husband, 29 meters, has been in alcohol recovery for 5 years. Last night at friend's party he opened a beer like it was nothing. I told him I'd leave him if ever drank again. Do I keep my word? I love my husband very much, but we went through some crazy shit with his drinking. Most of the time he was a very silly drunk who was actually a lot of fun, but there were several occasions where he'd rage, get in fights and drive drunk. He went into recovery about 5 years ago and has been an amazing man and husband ever since. When I started the recovery process with him, I told him very clearly that I would leave him if he ever touched alcohol again. Last night we went to a UFC pay-per-view at a friend's house. It was typical guys watch TV, girls in the kitchen talking. The host had set up like a trough with ice that was filled with beer. Out of the corner of my eye I saw my husband very casually go up and to the trough, get a beer and sit back down and start drinking it. It was a flashback to all those awful nights we spent with his addiction. I know to never get in a discussion with him when he's drinking, even one, but I did watch him the rest of the night and he didn't have any more. I have to be honest that in the past even a single beer would have led to a blackout, so at least in this instance he controlled himself. I stayed up sleepless all night. I swore to myself I'd leave instantly if he ever drank again. I feel so much shame for even being here knowing what we went through with his drinking. At the same time, do I throw away everything for what appeared to be one absent-minded beer? He had to work today, so he's up and out of the house and I haven't had a chance to talk to him. It's that conversation I'm dreading. What should I do here? This is serious as hell and you should definitely talk to him, but I'd like to add a possibility: non-alcoholic beer. This was a thought I had too. His buddy may have specifically bought non-alcoholic beer for him. Have a calm convo with him and try not to blow up until he's attempted to explain. I wish I could help. I saw my dad do that and it turned out to be a non-alcoholic beer. But he should have showed you so there was no confusion. I'm assuming his friends know about his struggles, so maybe they told him they got some non-alcoholic beers for him. Especially if it's a guy's night with a trough filled with beers, they wanted to make him feel included. That's then also probably the reason that he acted so casually about it, because he didn't even realize you thought he's relapsing. Please talk with him properly before acting rash. I'm pretty surprised at the people telling you that it's only one and he obviously managed to control himself. Everything I've ever read about alcoholism states that you really can't drink at all, ever, or you may find yourself spiraling down again. You really do have a difficult decision to make here. If you give him this time, what if there is a next time? What if it's 2 beers next time? I'm weirded out by how casually it seems he had the drink. If he's casually drinking beer right in front of you, he might already be drinking elsewhere. Doesn't look like someone who's had his first drink in 5 years after fighting so hard. Brother's wife had an affair with me, but he won't believe that I didn't know. Everything feels like it's falling apart and I don't want it to end this way. My older brother and I used to be close as kids, but we had different lives. Both had the same dad but different moms. My mom was a junkie, so his mom used to let me stay with them often. Around my senior year of high school I started falling into the same thing as my mom, and that fucked up my relationship with him. I was an asshole back then and basically took advantage of his and his mom's help. Stole money from them for drugs. Made them think I was getting help and needed money for rent. Not proud of what I did, and I absolutely deserved it when they both cut me out of their lives. Was only 21 at the time, and for 3 years I was out of control with my drinking and getting high all the time. It was a really bad period in my life. Second time I OD'd, I started going to rehab. I'm 29, sober for 5 years, got my GED, and working full-time at a recycling plant. Over a year ago I decided to reach out to my brother. Wanted to show him that I changed my life around and want to reconnect with him because I know I fucked up in the past. My brother was willing to talk and slowly have been keeping touch through Zoom, phone calls, and TXTs. It's been so great having my brother back in my life. I know he still doesn't fully trust me and I don't blame him. He's gotten married and has 2 kids, a girl and a boy ages 4 and 2. Still haven't met them because, like I said, I'm working on earning that trust and he doesn't want them to know who I am just yet. Was never even shown a picture of them. That includes his wife or soon to be ex-wife. but turns out she's the fucking lying piece of shit I've hooked up with from time to time over the years. Met her years ago when I think I was 23-24. We took ecstasy together and hooked up at my buddy's house. We met again at another party 8 months later. From there we'd hook up every once in a while. But I never had a clue she was married. We went long periods without seeing each other, but I was busy with my job and working my program, so never thought anything of it. We were never anything serious. It was always about having sex and not seeing each other for months. Last time I saw her was close to 7 months ago. He found out last week. When he called me I had no idea why he was so pissed, and he told me everything. About how he found she had another phone hidden in the house and he found the texts she sent me. And he'd confronted her wanting to know who the guy was, and she admitted it was me. Like how much she told him, or if she's trying to throw me under the bus too. She knew all this time since me and him started talking again that I was his brother, and never said anything until she was caught. He was half yelling at me, half crying that he couldn't believe I'd do this to him after all the shit he's done for me, and that I'm dead to him. No matter how many times I told him I didn't know it was her, he still didn't believe me. Eventually he hung up on me and all my calls are going to voicemail now. I've texted him a million times explaining everything and telling him I'm sorry, but now I'm not getting anything. I can't imagine how much he's hurting right now. I hate that I'm the one who caused this. Now it's like I keep going back and thinking about why it never occurred to me that she probably was married with kids. Is it that I just didn't care to think about it? Would have never slept with a married woman, and now it looks like I've fucked up my relationship with him for life. It just hurts to think about it. We were doing so well, building things back up and going back to how we used to be. Now I've hurt him again and I'm scared I'll never be able to see him or my niece and nephew ever. He has no reason to believe you, especially since you were an untrustworthy person in the past. And even if he were to believe you, he might not want to be around you simply because it's too painful. All you can do is keep maintaining the truth and hope that in time he realizes it. I would stop calling/texting because it's basically harassment if you keep it up. Think about what you would want in a similar situation. Maybe try reaching out in a few months, but accept that he may never want a relationship with you again. Try not to beat yourself up too much. Sometimes other people can hurt your life through no fault of your own. Focus on what you can control. You're 29, sober for 5 years, took drugs with her about 23-24, then met 8 months later. After that he married her and had 2 children with her, never mentioning you at all, even though she would have been in the same circles as you. How on earth did this all happen in 5 years without something being mentioned? According the timeline provided, he's never met her as brother's wife. They did the drugs, met up again 8 months later, and then every 6 or so months after that. They probably aren't in the same circles per se. If the wife had a secret cell phone, I imagine she has a secret life too, especially if she's only popping in his life once/twice a year. Of course, the whole story could entirely be a creative writing exercise. But if it isn't, the wife's secret drug life wouldn't surprise me. A dear friend of mine found out her, now ex-husband had been hiding a pretty significant drug problem from her for years, and she was completely in the dark. He definitely had a double life that he hid well. I'm sure this isn't the response you want, but you're right that this might irrevocably change your relationship with your brother. And honestly, even if it's not your fault and you didn't know, I think you're just going to have to accept that. I think you should give him some time, at least a couple of weeks, to get over the initial shock of finding out his wife cheated on him. Then reach out to him again and apologize and say you'd like to explain if he'd be open to talking to you. You don't know what his wife has said. Maybe she didn't throw you under the bus and was completely honest about keeping that info from you. Either way, you still fucked his wife and he might never get over that. Would your buddy, whose house you first hooked up with her at, know whether or not you knew who she was? If so, maybe have him write an email to your brother on your behalf. Otherwise, give him some time and distance to process. For now, get into counseling to discuss this and everything else in your life. After you've worked through some of it, and after he's had time to process, ask your counselor to help you word a letter/email to send to him that apologizes, explains, and then leaves the ball in his court whether to ever respond. I'm not sure if she was already with my brother or not back then, but it wouldn't be possible to reach out to my buddy anyways. He was also my dealer and I basically cut contact with everyone from that life when I started doing rehab. You've been hooking up with this lady for years. He has 2 kids that are 4 and 2. You could be the father of those kids and not him. You need to take a huge step back from this for a second and actually think about this situation, because it could be 10 times more fucked than you think right now, and you might have 2 children that you never heard of being raised by your half-brother. Parents want to follow me to college. Hey guys, so pretty much the title. I've been applying to colleges, pretty far away from home. Recently, my father told me he wants to sell the house. Naturally, I asked where he would plan on moving, and he said he was waiting to see where I got accepted. Honestly, part of why I applied far away was so I could get away and start things on my own in my own way. I know for fairness to myself, I should tell them, but I know it would hurt them and I feel bad. I just am unsure how to go about the conversation, if I should go about it at all in the first place. Edit, I feel this is an important detail I left out. I'm applying for graduate school. Edit 2, thanks everyone for the sound advice and help. I really appreciate it. To avoid being too repetitive in the comments, the hardest part is going about bringing it up and trying to keep everyone's heads level. You all gave me so many great ideas on how to combat that. I'll be having the talk with them soon. Go to NYU, Columbia, any school in NY, and then tell them good luck. Many people have to go through a period in their lives where they have to establish independence from their parents as adults. For some reason, a lot of parents want to hang on to controlling their kids' lives past when it's appropriate, and sometimes this transition is painful. You do not have to defend yourself. It's not something you have to get into a heated debate about. You can simply establish appropriate boundaries and stick to them. Your parents will hate it, but an argument would not change anything for you. That's why you should just establish your boundary as tactfully but firmly as possible and then not get sucked into an argument. No is a complete sentence. Good luck. No is a complete sentence is probably some of the best advice I've heard. It typically devolves into an argument with him, though, is my only worry, and admittedly I'm not the best at reacting appropriately to it. Just tell them, stop worrying about hurting their feelings. You think it's better for them to sell their house and uproot their lives and move across the country or world just because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Tell them, hey, Dad, I'm really touched by the fact that you and Mom want to move closer to where I go to school. I really think I need to learn to be a bit more independent, though, and I'd rather spend some time living farther away. I promise I'll be in touch and visit often. I think I would say something like, graduate school is only temporary, please don't uproot your lives to follow me somewhere I mostly likely won't stay. If they choose to move, that's their choice, but do go ahead and make sure you've secured your own housing and do some reading on how to establish boundaries so they aren't all over you or expecting you to come to dinner every night or something. OMG, you poor thing. I'm a mom of adult kids. Your parents need to get a life. You're applying to grad school, so you're at least 22 and a proper adult. So stand up for yourself. Tell your parents you love them, but you need more independence and don't wish for them to move where you live. If they have a meltdown, then something is wrong with them and they haven't gotten used to you being a grown-up. In all fairness, it does take a bit of adjusting, but I'd never do what they did. Are you the only? Is that why they're so obsessed with you? Anyway, you need to be firm. If they have temper tantrums when you calmly tell them you need more independence but are more than happy to keep up the relationship via visits, calls, video chats, then you need to be firmer. Don't let them guilt trip you. It's not healthy for either of you. I'm the youngest, which I feel has something to do with it. I'm hoping the conversation won't go that way when I can actually have it with them. I'm just always unsure how to bring it up.